Hello and welcome to SCU. I'm here today with Director Class Lilia, the director of Beyond Vanilla, and my partner on the project. What we'd like to talk about today is the influence of Beyond Vanilla and 50 Shades of Grey. I'm sure everybody out there has been reading it, heard about it, know about it. It's been all over the news. Last time you think I think we were 10 years ahead of our time.
Oh, at least, yes. It's nice to see that people are beginning to talk about this again, and that people are starting to explore what BDSM and kink is really about, because I think there's still a lot of misunderstanding. I think not enough people saw Beyond Vanilla to understand a little bit more about it, if I can push that.
Absolutely.
Some of the big criticisms that I've heard against 50 Shades of Grey is that it's turning the female character into a victim who is being controlled by this other man.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's easy to have that interpretation of it, and it could be true in some cases that is the case.
Mm-hmm.
But often also there are a lot of people who voluntarily choose to be in that kind of relationship and that kind of role because that is something that's very fulfilling for them. We're all created differently, and we all have different formative experiences that trigger those kind of little pleasure sensors within us in different ways. And one of the most liberating experiences from a lot of people I noticed when we were doing Beyond Vanilla is giving up control to somebody else. It gives you a freedom to just be. So in a lot of scenarios with bondage, for example, a lot of people report having something that can really be described as a meditative experience.
Yes.
And
yes.
I think kink sex can be used for personal growth and development, because when you're confronted with the lack of power or the experience of having this enormous power, you get to experience different parts of yourself and your psyche that you may not really get to experience fully in your day-to-day every life. And there's a lot of value to having a full, balanced, varied kind of experience in life. And some of those experiences can be played out in the sexual arena with great pleasure.
Well, when I was reading through the book, what impressed me the most about the book, as well as when we made the film, is that everything is consensual. It's all pre-negotiated up front, so that what that scene, what they're going to play, and what they're going to explore together as partners was absolutely consensual. So I kind of want to back off for myself. Was she really a victim when she agreed to all of this? She even signed a huge non-disclosure document and did all of this kind of thing. So I kind of question that, but you know, that's kind of splitting hairs, nitpicking.
No, absolutely, and I think there are cases where there are people, not necessarily women, could be men also, who are psychologically or emotionally traumatized for whatever reason,
Mm-hmm.
which will lead them into engaging in sexual or other behavior that's not necessarily healthy for them.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to acknowledge that that also happens, and it's important to look closely at each situation that you are faced with a potential partner. Is this somebody who is mentally, emotionally stable, who can actually make a consenting choice?
Right.
Because if you find that there's a lot of other issues that might be fueling this underneath them, and if you're confronted with that kind of situation, I think you should really probe that a little bit more before going too far with it, whether you're then in the dominant role or the submissive role.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, sexuality is a big responsibility. It is a birthright, but it's also something that we have to take responsibility for. And we're responsible both for ourselves and for our partners.
Now, when we were filming Beyond Vanilla, wasn't it true that a lot of these people who were part of the scene, that they did so many other layers. If they were into water sports, maybe they were also into a little bit of flogging, and they seem to be able to be very mobile across scenes and playing in all types of variety of scenes. Is that not correct?
Absolutely, and I think that happens naturally when you start opening up your ideas around what sexuality is, and when you start exploring and allowing your mind and your imagination to travel. It will travel where it wants to travel, and it may travel into areas that are not possible to actually live out in real life. I think it's important to recognize that some sexual fantasies are intended to just be fantasies. But there are some things that you can actually go out and physically explore and do that are safe if you know how to do them and if you're playing with other consensual player. And I think, you know, the area of consent, you can't stress that enough, because if it's not consensual, it is rape.
Yes,
And,
right.
and no means no, no matter what.
Yeah.
Unless you have negotiated that in this particular scenario, in this setup, no doesn't mean no, that the safe word is catch the bus, or whatever it is.
Right. Let's go into that a little bit, because you just raised a great point that a lot of people want to know about. How do you negotiate that? And you just referred to a safe word that stops the scene. Can you explain that part of it?
Yes, I think you need to be clear. Everybody who's involved in the scene needs to be clear on what stops the scene, what is causing a bit of a pause for the scene to check in, and what is just a role play or an enhancement. Somebody can be screaming no at the top of their lungs while having the most pleasurable experience. I remember one person that I interviewed who was mentioning this about fisting, and he was with somebody and he was getting fisted, and he started screaming no, and the person stopped, and he just looked up and he said, "Did I say stop?"
Right, right, okay, yes, yes, yes.
So it's important that you have a common language that you can communicate with, and creating a safe word. Ideally, a safe word would be something that you will remember, that's an easy thing to remember, but may be kind of unrelated to the sexual act, which will give you the freedom to express whatever comes up sexually. So maybe the safe word could be tomato. Or some people like to use, you know, the traffic signal, red,
Right.
yellow, green. That's one way to do it.
Sure.
You have to find what works for you, and if you're really, really, really in tune with the person that you're playing with, you're never going to need to use the safe word.
Right, yes.
But it's good to have it there, just in case.
Yes. From looking back now in retrospect, we made this film 10 years ago,
Yes.
which is unbelievable. Have you, in your personal journey and other films that you've been making, have you seen anything different from the growth of the community, how all of this is expanded out? Do you see anything that would be either different or how it would apply even back then to now?
Well, I think that there are some areas that were considered taboo and kinky, if you were like 10-15 years ago, have become slightly more mainstream, a little bit more acceptable as people have gotten more exposure to them and understand what they actually are. I think the prevalence of sex and porn on the internet certainly has helped desensitize people a little bit to the scandalous kind of reaction to some of these sexual activities. So I find that it's easier for a lot of people to talk about it, but I still think that we have a long way to go. And one's personal sexual journey is lifelong, and it's an ongoing exploration, and sometimes it may go into a kinky arena for some people, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it travels more into the field of the emotional connectivity and the soft, gentle sensuality, which can also be part of a kink scene. I find that people in general tend to go through phases in different areas and kind of weave in and out, and certain times something is a little bit more exciting and
They go beyond vanilla.
they go beyond vanilla, and sometimes they go back to vanilla.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Well, I want to thank you, class. This was great.
Thank you, Robert.
Yeah, and so check back in. We'll have more interviews with class in the future, as well as some of our other faculty here at SCU.
And make sure you get Beyond Vanilla. It's available on DVD. You can get it at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Overstock, all major.
Strand Releasing, our distributor.
Yes.
All right, thanks for checking in. Bye for now.